Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Big East Rewind. I'm your host, Chuck Everson, along with my partner in crime, Dr. Sonny Spera from Syracuse University. How are you, Sonny?
I'm great, Chuck. Should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be another good one. One of my guys from Nova.
Now you sound like Coach, by the way, Chuck. One of my guys.
Exactly right. One of my guys from Nova. Rob Wilson is with us. Rob was a manager on our 85 team. He and I were the same year at school. And then Rob went on to become the senior director of sports media relations with the Miami Heat for the past 22 years. So we're going to get to talk to Rob today about the Big East, his time there, and maybe we'll touch on a little bit of the Heat if we're lucky. So, Rob, welcome to the show. How are you?
Welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Always good to see you, my man.
You too, buddy.
So, Rob, talk to me about, how did you go from Hauppauge, New York to Nova? I mean, your coach, I know you worked, you got the nickname Stats at Hauppauge for running being the statistician and the manager and stuff there. And Kenny Gableman was the head coach there. And did he help you get involved with the basketball team at Nova?
Absolutely. Back when we were back in high school, didn't know where exactly I wanted to go, but Coach kept pushing me towards Coach Mass. Coach Gableman towards Coach Mass. They went to camp there every year, so that connection was made, and he kept telling Coach Gableman kept telling Coach Mass, "Hey, I got your guy. I got your statistician for the next 4 years. This is, my guy." And I think he, as much as Coach Mass recruited me. Coach gave me, you're a Villanova guy. You got to go to Villanova. Got. And that's what he kept every day. Villanova. And I knew I wanted to get involved in sports. I knew I wasn't good enough to play on that level. But that was a way to get in. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do for a career in sports, but I knew I wanted to be in sports.
Yeah.
And, back in high school, I was a manager of the baseball team, the basketball team, the football team. So, was constantly involved with one sport or another. And this was a good opportunity to, take that next step and then hopefully, have it lead to a professional job in sports.
So
go ahead.
When you get to Nova,
Mm-hmm.
is it kind of understood that you're going to go into this role, or was it something that you had to? So it was sort of set up a little bit.
It was, In fact, actually, Villanova played in the NCAA tournament at the Nassau Coliseum.
Northeast.
It would have been Chuck and my senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Coach Gableman took me to the hotel where Villanova was. They have a team meeting, watching film, and he was like, "Yep, this is gonna be your next manager next year. This is gonna be your guy." So so I knew going in that this was pretty much a done deal. I mean, that's what my dad wasn't a big sports fan. My mother was. She's a high school referee, and she kept pushing me into sports. I went to Villanova because I was going to be a basketball manager. Not for the education was great, but I literally went there. Just like guys go to play at certain schools. I went to Villanova because I knew I was going to be the manager at a Big East school, and that was going to help, hopefully propel my career.
How did the structure work for you? So you're a freshman, you low man on the totem pole, you got to carry.
Yep.
Talk about that, because each school has a little different tradition.
Yeah, Sonny, that's the way Coach Mass liked it. He always liked to have one on each level, because that means every year one was coming and one was leaving, and you climb the ladder. And now I look at Villanova and a lot of other schools, and now they got about 8, 10, 12 managers where we had one on each level, and your responsibilities increased with each year. But that's the way it was at Villanova back in the day. There was one for each class, and so I was very fortunate to be able to get that one spot. But
you got recruited.
A little bit.
He's the only manager in the country that got recruited.
You got recruited, man.
No, it was weird. He had offers from Georgetown and St. John's too. He wanted to play Mass.
We kind of had tryouts for some of our managers. You skipped the walk-on process.
Yeah, man. Well, luckily for me. Luckily, because that opened the first door, it's opened the next door, and so on and so forth. And it's, I've been now in sports, either college or pro now, for about 40 years.
Yeah. Now looking back, there's majors now that have incorporated some of this, right? You probably are thinking, boy, I could have benefited from that, huh?
You're right, Sonny. As we got, as I'm starting to work in college in the, 90s, I'm like, wow, I wish that would have been a major. I would have liked that. I actually majored in business administration and that was kind of the fallback to have a business degree. But yeah, no, I most certainly would have loved to have gone to a place that had a sports management program.
Mm-hmm.
So Stats. So now you with that group with John Pannone, our freshman year, Michael Moquin, Stu Granger were the leaders on that team. Talk about the dynamic on that team with those three guys. I mean, John and Mike took no crap from anybody.
No, they didn't.
And were very difficult on the young. Did they give you as much of a hard time as they gave me?
Probably, Chuck. I mean, they were set in their ways, and they were, they wanted things done a certain way, and they wanted to be taken care of. They wanted things. Give me this, give me that. Don't worry about him. Take care of me. I've earned this. John was tough. John was the bear, right? Yeah,
he was tough. I remember in one of those grueling practices we had, I'm exhausted. He's beating the crap out of me for 2 hours. And I turned around to knock the ball out of his hand, and I whacked him on the arm. And he turned around and hit me with an elbow in the chest. We squared off. And Coach jumped in the middle, grabbed me, and pushed me back. He goes, "Are you crazy? He will kill you. Are you nuts?" So, it was a lesson learned from John. So we go downstairs, Sonny, in the locker room, and I go, "He's the captain. I got to go apologize to the guy." And I go, "John, I'm really sorry for what went on up there." He goes, "Hey, listen, we're downstairs now. It's all cool." He goes, "In fact, and Stats can vouch for me on this. In fact, we're going to go out and get some pizza tonight and some soda. I'm buying." John never bought for anybody. And so we go out, and he says, "Listen, we're teammates. We're brothers down here." He goes, "You step over that line, it's on again. So tomorrow, get your rest tonight, because I'm going to beat the crap out of you again tomorrow." And that's how it was with John. But it was a great lesson. But he was an equal opportunity offender. He got everybody. He got Stats. He got all the young guys, right, Stats?
They got all the guys on the other teams too. That was just John.
Yeah.
Yep, I've been there. I've been on that side.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We've all been there. So as a freshman, then, Stats, what were your roles and responsibilities with the team?
I think basically, Chuck, a lot of it had to be getting ready for practice. Making sure that the court was set up, maybe mopping the floor, whatever, so that was ready. Having towels, water, all that kind of basic stuff up there. Your first year, like I said, just trying to watch and do what the older guys tell you to do. It's like anything else. I mean, again, you're low man on the totem pole, so the senior manager says, "Hey, I need you to do this or that. I need you to go get somebody, go to somebody's class, or make sure they go to class, or hey, Coach Marbach needs so and so go drive over to wherever and pick it up and bring it back." You're basically, you do what you're told.
Yeah, you were the gopher at that point, right?
Exactly. Be seen and not heard.
That's right. We had Johnny Branker on not too long ago, and he was kind of describing some of that stuff,
Oh, that's great.
And as you guys moved up, you eventually got to be the guy that ran the whole show your senior year, right? Because you were very, very special and important to the guys on that team when you got to be a senior. Because you were the guy that held those brown envelopes that we got when we got on the bus to go to the Big East tournament or wherever we were going, right?
Yeah, I talk about that. That was the chant for going into the tournament. 1, 2, 3 meal money.
Yeah, that was the huddle chant, Sonny. Yep. 1, 2, 3 meal money.
Not family, not together. Meal money.
Win in the NCAA tournament meant you were getting $50. 2 more days, you get $100 with each win. So that was big time stuff.
Good.
All about the Benjamins.
Oh, no question. The regular season was that big $5 that we got to eat after a game, to go buy part of a pizza or whatever.
So we're jumping ahead a little bit, but talk about, that group, in '85 that you were part of, and how we worked together and how kind of we were in sync the whole season. Talk a little bit about, tell a couple of stories about that group and what we went through in '85.
That was, again, the nice thing about that was it's a senior group. So most of us have been together now for 3-4 years. Obviously for us it was 3 years, but Eddie and Giz and Dwayne haven't been there 4 years. It's funny. Coaches' teams never lost when we were up with 4 minutes to go. Because we hit our free throws, we didn't turn the ball over, and we lost some games that year. That way, particularly 2 Georgetown games in a regular season, and that's why. Another reason I don't think anybody thought we could win the championship game. But I still, I'll tell you what, I still remember when we were in Lexington picking up the paper the day before the final game, and the columnists with the local paper saying that there would be a Martian in the White House before Villanova ever beat Georgetown for the national title.
Yeah.
And it was fun to read the paper the next day, with them having to eat it. But it was a good group. I mean, that group just, we could play a lot of games with one another, I don't know. It was a fun time to be there, because even though we were a senior team, we were the underdogs. That was St. John's and Georgetown flipped 1 and 2 all year. So we were kind of the afterthought. We were good, but we were kind of the afterthought.
Yeah.
And then BC wound up getting to the final 8, I guess it was, before they wound up losing to Memphis. I mean, we could have had an All Big East final that year.
Mm-hmm. Talk about, along the way, because obviously you got recruited by Coach Mass. So talk about your relationship with Coach Mass as it went through your years. It had to just either get deeper or more involved, but just talk about that.
Yeah, it is, Sonny. It's as at first you're basically like, we said before, you're the gopher, and then as you get there, you're there a little bit longer, you get a little bit more responsibility. You earn his trust. By the time you're the senior, like I said, you get more responsibility. One of the things as a senior is we were in charge of all the money. Now that's not just the meal money for the players and the coaches. I would go on a road. I'd have several $1,000s with me. I'd have it in the briefcase, and it would, I'd have all the coaches, the money if coach needed to go somewhere. Like, in Syracuse, you go take other coaches out or friends up in the area out to Grimaldi's. And before he'd go out, he'd say, hey, give me $500, give me $800. I said, yeah, here you go, here it is. Just make sure you bring back a receipt, because I had to go back to the business manager and have accounting. I either had to have the money or receipts for every dollar they gave me. And coach wasn't real good with receipts. As much as you'd remind him and you say, hey, I need this, he'd come back and, hey, coach, you got there. No, just don't worry about it. Just tell me, that's great. But Jim Brown, the business manager, he doesn't want me just to say I gave you 500. He wants a receipt or something. Don't worry about that. You'll be fine. So
Grimaldi's, that's not an accident. So you got to talk about the Italian flavor. You got to talk about pasta, mangia. You got to talk about it.
No, well, I tell you, he knew where all the best Italian spots were in the Big East, or even when we got in the NCAA tournament, he knew where those places were. But he'd be going and hosting a bunch of his friends, coaches, broadcasters, the Rafteries of the world, and the different guys that were broadcasting our games at the time. And he'd pick up the check, and like I said, they'd be out all night partying, wine, pasta, and then they'd come back with nothing. And then I'd have to come back and try and explain how all of a sudden I'm $2,000 late, and I swear I gave it a coach, and the Jim Brown, the business guy, was just like, come on, really? But I was like, hey, you tell coach. I said, I tell coach I need to have these receipts, and he said, just write it down. Yeah, okay. I'm a 20-year-old kid who certainly can't afford to have to replace this money if but that's it. We would travel with that money, and you had that briefcase in the plane, and you wouldn't let it out of your sight, because again, I certainly couldn't afford the amount of money that was in there having to replace it. But it's but you gain coach's trust, and that was a big part of everything. And after he graduated, and you go back and visit, or you'd call him. I'm sure Chuck has brought up, they used to have these meetings down at Coach's Place, usually around the weekend of the Super Bowl, where everybody kind of come back and hang out. That was one of the things that was really unique about our program. There was a great love and respect among players, coaches, managers, that still to this day is strong. Being in pros now the last 24 years, I've had a chance to work with a lot of athletes, and they are stunned to hear how how our bond still is all these years later. I mean, Chuck has done an unbelievable job as our unofficial alumni director. I mean, there's not a birthday that goes by, or an anniversary, or a kid, one of our guys' kids getting a scholarship that we don't know about. And when I tell that to other players, they're like, really? I mean, you guys have been out 35 years and you're still, you still know what, everybody's kid is doing, and who's gotten a scholarship, and whose birthday it was, and whose mom is. It's amazing. And that's that's the best part about what we do, is the people, is the relationships that you make over the years. I'm sure you guys played the game. When you get out, you miss the games, I think, but you miss more than anything is the relationships. And Chuck has done an unbelievable job of making sure that we still maintain those relationships, or maybe they're even stronger.
Yeah, well, it was a special group of guys, and like I've said before, it's eventually the ball stops bouncing and you can't play anymore due to age or what have you, but the locker room doesn't have to stop. So that's kind of what the premise was for the show that we're doing, that Sonny and I are doing. Sonny and I have been friends for a long time too, and we've been bringing guys in and talking with them, and it's been really cool getting to know some of these guys that you only know as the foe on the other team across from you on the court. It's been kind of cool.
I tell you what, like I said, Coach eventually migrated down here to Florida, so I'd go up a couple times a year, watch his teams play, and just see how he was doing, and just check in with him. And I tell you what, one of the things that always stuck with me is he told me, the last couple of years, how proud he was of me. And that always meant something, because you always, you worked hard, and you like what you've done in your career, but just to hear from somebody like Coach Mass that you respected, and somebody that quite literally opened the door. I mean, if I don't get that Villanova manager's job, I don't get the Big East job, the internship at the Big East I had. And then, that then led to a couple other jobs. So, I mean, it literally, that Villanova job, I think, opened up my career and has allowed me to do this for the last, 30, 40 years.
What kind of time did it take up? I mean, obviously, as a player, you're expected to do certain things, but you guys were there much later than us, after games, especially, and cleaning up practices and stuff. So what kind of time constraints did it put on your schoolwork and stuff?
First to arrive and last to leave. I mean, like you said, we'd have to be there early to set up practice, whether it be getting towels or ball, make sure the balls are out, the floor was mopped. The locker room was set up. The locker room was cleaned afterwards. You guys weren't always the neatest bunch.
No.
You'd leave the locker room and there'd be bottles of Gatorade or soda all over the place, and tape and whatever. So we'd have to clean that locker room, make sure it was ready for the next day. It took time. And like I said, trying to balance it with school, I eventually got the gist of it. I tell you what, funny Coach Mass story. It's our second year, Chuck, and I don't know if you remember this, but I certainly do. We had just gotten our midterm grades in, the first semester grades in, and they weren't real good. And I remember, before practice every day, Coach would put all the guys in a chair, all the players in a chair, line them up, and then he would address them. And he's walking out there and he's, looking at the grades. The grades came in today, and, some of you did well and some of you didn't. And he said, and God damn it, he said, Stats and Pannone, a blank and walk-on and a manager got the two worst grades in his team. You guys are supposed to bring up the damn team Cume. I think I got a 1.8 that semester. And Stevie got worse than I. And I was like, yeah, this isn't real good. And, I remember going home and I was like, you better get a 3.0 the next semester or it's over. We're not going to spend this kind of money to have you pull in a 1.8. I did. I bounced back with a 3.0 the next semester, but, I still remember him saying, walk-ons and the managers are here to help bring up the team Cume, not bring it down.
What are some of the memories that you have of some of the either games that you had in the Palestra or in some of the, Madison Square Garden, some of the marquee arenas?
The first one that comes to mind, particularly when you talk to Palestra, is, and I'm sure Chuck remember this, is we beat Georgetown 68-67 on a Monday night in the Palestra. We played Georgetown, and Eddie Pinckney was sick as a dog. And we didn't know that Eddie was going to play that day. And Eddie dropped 27 points and 22 rebounds And we came back and we wound up winning by a point. And that was, I'll tell you what, that's about as good a performance as I've seen in college. That was unbelievable. And then Palestra was obviously rocking that night. It's, it only seats about 9,000 people. And it was a big Monday. And back then, not every game was on, on cable. So
big Monday
was a big
Marquee.
thing, and to win that game. And, that obviously had to be one of my favorite. The other one that comes to mind, my freshman year, we played at North Carolina. And the year before Chuck and I got there, Carolina had eliminated Villanova in the final 8 of the tournament.
Won it all.
And won it all. And so we're playing them. It's February 13th. They're the number 1 team in the country at the time. We're number 13. They are the defending national champ. Actually, I guess I should go back 2 days earlier. 2 days earlier, there's a snowstorm that hits the entire East Coast. And it was during, I think it was during our midterms, Chuck.
Yeah.
They wound up canceling classes. And we wound up playing Pitt in the Jake Nevin Fieldhouse, which is a small bandbox, great place to play. And since they canceled school, Pitt was down here ready. So they said, all right, let's play the game. So they opened it up to the students, first 3,000, 4,000, whatever, first come, first serve. And since they canceled classes early in the day, let's just say a lot of the students, they had a couple of adult beverages during the course of the day since, they knew they weren't going to take their midterms and we were going to have this game. That might have been the best crowd we ever had at home. It was rocking. And then, Dwayne with a couple of those dunks just got it going. So we win that game. And then the next day we're at practice. And I remember being in Coach's office. It's myself and I think Coach Marbach might have been there with Coach Mass. And Notre Dame is playing NC State on NBC. And our game on Sunday was supposed to be an NBC game.
Right.
And we're watching this, and you got to remember, Coach Mass and Coach Phelps, they had a little bit of a rivalry there. There was not a lot of love there. And during the course of the game, the NC State Notre Dame game, they say, well, we hear Villanova's, stranded up in Pennsylvania. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to come down and play North Carolina tomorrow. But Digger Phelps has graciously agreed to play North Carolina tomorrow since they were in NC State already. And I tell you what, the look on Coach's face, he was like, MF.
Lost his mind, Sonny, basically.
Oh, that MFer, there's no way he's not taking our game. And at this point, we still don't have a way to get down there because all the airports were closed. And, so now we start figuring, all right, how are we going to get there? Can we take a bus? Can we take a train? Can we, how can we get down there to play, an afternoon game, no less? And, nothing. And then, somebody comes up and says, all right, well, you know what? We take a bus. If we leave in an hour, we could probably get there about 1 a.m. and, play that game at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And, but we're all right, we could do that. Let's see if we got better options. And then eventually, Dave Koski, who was our assistant SID at the time, came up with the idea that we fly out of an Air Force base in New Jersey because they were going to there. They cleared the runway quicker.
Yep.
And that was my very first flight ever, was on a prop plane out of New Jersey in a snowstorm down to North Carolina. So that'll always be memorable.
Sonny, the pilot of the plane, Sonny, looked like the Red Baron, okay? He had the scarf and the hat and goggles. And, Stats isn't doing it justice. I'm in the back of the plane with Pinckney, and you never seen two guys find religion so fast. When the plane took off, it was like this from the jump all the way till it got down.
Right, so that was my very first flight ever.
Really?
Yes. So I figured after that I was good. I got this flying thing down now.
Can only go up from there.
Exactly.
Only go up.
Let's hope it stayed up. But then we go out that next day. We get there, late night. We're in a motor inn.
Early morning we got there. We got there after midnight. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a late night. I mean, early morning, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And we're in like a motor inn, not even a regular hotel. We have a walkthrough the next morning in the parking lot between, parking spaces. And, that's the key.
That's the key. Yeah.
We did it outside. And then we go in and we never trailed in the game. We beat them 56-53, led the entire way. They had a 10-year winning streak against non-conference opponents at Carmichael. It's in the older inn. It was at Carmichael. go in there, beat them, never trailed. 56, 53. They were number one. We were 13. You know, great win.
Did Coach send Digger a bottle of wine or something?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he sent him something. But the look on his face, there's no way they're taking our game.
He was a calm guy. He never got excited.
No, of
right?
course. But I tell you what, though, Sonny, he did. It's funny thing was after he heard Digger say that, or them say that Digger said that, he was going to let the players decide. But there's no way that we weren't going there. And I remember him going down to the locker room with the team and say, okay, these are our options. Right now we're looking at the bus. Maybe we can get a train, something we're going to get in late at night, early morning, and then have to turn around and play this game. And John Padone gets up right away and says, we're playing. I mean, there was no debate because coach was going to bring it down there for debate, or at least, make it appear to be a debate. And Padone got up right away and said, we're going. And remember, like, he's a senior now, and they got knocked out by Carolina the year before. So they, he wanted that game, and him and Stewie and whatever, they were going to make sure we got there one way or the other to play that thing.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So talk about stats now. It's getting close to graduation. You got you went through the 85 thing. Now you're the guy in 86. Okay, and we're getting down to the end. Talk about what it was like in the Big East tournaments at that time, in 85, 86. What was that like for you? And I know you guys had a little more free time, at least according to Branca, you had a little more free time.
Wolfie always made his free time.
Yeah, well, that's true. So talk about that for you guys when we go on the road, like to New York City.
Well, you still had to make sure things were done. I was always worried about, making sure you guys had everything you needed. You dealt with tickets a little bit more there too. You dealt with Lee Donor, who at the time was our ticket manager, trying to make sure that we had tickets for us, and trying to get tickets, being like yourself, Chuck, being a guy from Long Island, trying to make sure we had tickets for our friends, family. That was never easy because we only got a limited number of tickets. And, so you spend time trying to secure tickets. But nothing, I tell you what, one of the things to me was always, you knew you were getting near the end, and that kind of made it a little sad is that, that you had 3 weeks to go, 4 weeks to go, whatever it was. I mean, I tell you what, I still was convinced that, after we won in 85, that we were going to win the next year too, because you just knew you were going to find a way to win. And when it ended, in Baton Rouge, I still thought we got down big to Georgia Tech, and I still thought we were coming back. And then that block charge call that went against us late, just they got that one wrong. And I think had we gotten that call, that that maybe we would have won that game and kept it going. But from a managerial standpoint, you're always trying to plan ahead, and because you don't even know where you're going all the time, and that kind of made it tough too. What region are we going to, and what day are we leaving, and some of us were crazy with you had to have your lucky suit, so you had to figure out where you could go to get it dry clean between games. I mean, I know particularly in '85 that was the thing. What we wore in that Dayton game. I had back then we didn't have a lot of suits like I do now, but you wore one suit for both days, a different shirt each time, obviously. But, when you won that first game, I remember we all got back on that Monday. It was a run to the dry cleaner to make sure they could hurry up and press these shirts so that you could have those two shirts for the next round. So
and Coach led that stats. Because if you look at the game film, he wore a blue suit the first game in an arena, and he wore a tan suit for the second game.
The second game. We all kind of did the
weekend.
Between the managers and the coaches, that was kind of our thing. You wore one and one, and then you wore the other the next game. And then since we were winning and in big games, you didn't want to screw up the karma.
Absolutely. Superstition.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't winning because we had better players or executed us.
No.
Yeah, right.
We won because we had our lucky suit.
Yeah, if God forbid Stats Wilson had the wrong shirt on, Sonny, or the wrong suit, the whole thing would have went up.
Somebody else would have won.
I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
I mean, between that and the Jaker, we had, we weren't screwing around with anything. We had, all our luck. That was another thing too. Obviously, as I'm sure Chuck has brought up, the relationship that we have with our trainer Jake Nevin was
Glad
really,
you brought it up. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he was one of a kind, and he kept everybody loose. With the managers, particularly later in his career, Jake's career, we had to make sure that we had his stuff. I mean, as Lou Gehrig's disease, he got the onset of that. We had to make sure we have his kit and his different things. But Jake would always still find ways to screw around with you and keep us loose and laugh. But that as someone who got close to him, that was part of our duty as a junior and a senior to make sure that that we had things that as best we could for him, that from an accessibility standpoint, that we always knew what a wheelchair was, the walker, and all those things. We were responsible for making sure we had that. And like I said, the look on his face, as we won the whole thing, or even we beat Michigan in the second round, he had that little leprechaun hat on, in St. Patty's Day. Just a lot of good memories that I mean, and we held Grant scoreless in that game. He was an All-American, and we held him scoreless in that second round NCAA tournament game.
Yeah.
We wound up beating three number one seeds rather, to win that championship in '85 along the way. So we didn't, nobody gifted us anything. We beat some pretty darn good teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think it was either Dwight or Dwayne talked about that too. It's the road to that. Everybody remembers the final game, but you forget some of the great moments and comebacks, and like look at what you're talking about. You're talking about a block charge call, right? In '86, if it went the other way, right? That's the beauty of the NCAA tournament.
No question.
I've
been in this business again 20 some odd years. I've been in the NBA now for 24 years. To me, my favorite sporting event is still the college tournaments, the NCAA tournament, and the college championships. To me, you can't beat it, because a lot of these guys are never going to play again.
Right.
So the emotion that they play with, the emotion that you see after the game, win or lose, there's nothing like it. Maybe the quality of ball isn't as great as it is in the NBA, but the emotion and what it means to all these guys,
that's the beauty of it. I mean, the fact is that they're imperfect, right? And then you sometimes have these superhuman efforts, and it's like, and some of them, it buoys them into pro careers. It's amazing.
No question.
Yeah.
So Stats, so you leave Villanova, you graduate, okay, and you wind up. You mentioned earlier you wind up working for the Big East. In what capacity were you with the Big East?
Well, my senior year, Chuck, Coach Mass kept pushing me to go to the Big East. He said, they got an internship there. And I think it'd be great for him. It would help your career, because he knew I wanted to be involved in sports. And I'll tell you what, the first year after I graduated, I got offered the Big East internship and couldn't afford it. At that point, it was up in Providence. They were paying $4,000. That was it. No room and board, no nothing. It was a straight $4,000. And it was one spot. So I had just gotten a car after I graduated, and I had car payments, and there's no way I could go live up there, have car payments and all that, and do it. So I stayed at home, worked for a year, made some money, so that the next year, I asked Coach to help me out again, and luckily I got offered again. And at that point, they doubled the money, so now I was going to make $8,000. So
living large.
Yeah, I was rolling now.
Talk
pizza
about
twice a week.
That's talk about meal money.
Thank goodness.
Pizza twice a week, man.
Thank goodness the conference office was in Providence, Rhode Island, because anywhere else I might not have been able to even afford that. But what you wound up doing, Chuck, it was spent doing two different things essentially: PR, public relations, and game operations. And we were there. You'd go to all the different championships that the Big East had, not just basketball. You go to the women's basketball, or you go to the track championship or the swimming championship. And you write press releases. We wound up picking players of the week in the different sports, doing publications, and it gave me a good base for what I'm doing now. And I tell you what, it's just how one thing leads to another. The Villanova managerial job led to the Big East internship. The Big East internship eventually led to my job at the University of Miami down the road, because after I got the Big East internship, I got a job at Drexel, worked there 5 years, then worked for the Phillies for a year. And then I got out of the Phillies right before the lockout hit. But the woman that was at the University of Miami who hired me was at the University of Pittsburgh when I was the intern at the Big East. And she knew me, and that's how I got that job. And then the job led to the job with the Sixers, which led to the job with the Heat. So it's,
Tell us, if you can, Stats, tell us a couple of good, now that you've been with the Heat 22 years, you got 3 rings with the Heat.
Almost got another one last year.
Yeah,
Almost got another one. Sonny, these things are like doorknobs more than rings. I mean, it's incredible, the size of these things. Even
nice.
for the folks that work in the office and everything, they're very impressive. And it's been nice knowing Stats, because I get to be Liberace for a day or two with the let me wear his ring. But talk about some of the stories, if you can, with working with pro guys versus college guys.
It's quite an experience. It's I tell you what, the first year I got into pros was the Sixers, and that was, I guess, about 89, I guess, maybe 87.
Was Leo Routins there then, or was he?
No, he was not. We did have one of your Syracuse boys in DC though. It was Larry Brown's first year with the Sixers, and this is Larry's first year because Johnny Davis had the job the year before, and then got let go. So the difference between Johnny Davis and Larry Brown, for those that were still there, was night and day. And Larry, very particular and very, we would constantly stop. And I tell you what, your eyes are open as the bickering going back and forth. This, to me, she's Larry Brown, Hall of Fame coach. And yet that group, and he weeded them out eventually, but we had some characters in that group, and you're watching them go back, and we had AI on that team too. Another Georgetown, another Big East guy.
Yeah.
And something would happen, and one guy would go yell and scream and go on one end of the court, and the other go pout down the other. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? But eventually they started weeding some of those guys out, and Larry got his own people in there, but it opened my eyes a little bit as to, talk back to, to a coach, particularly a coach of Larry's status. I was like, oh, okay. You certainly didn't see that in college. Nobody's going to go back at Coach Massimino or Coach Boeheim or Coach Thompson, or it just didn't work that way. I mean, college is a coach's league, and in the NBA, it's a pros league now. People didn't go back at Coach Riley very much here, but it is different in the pros. Like I said, the players run the show here. It's all about them, and rightfully so. But it was for me initially quite an eye opener to watch. Somebody go right back at Larry Brown, and then oh wow, okay, and the back and forth. Like, ooh, okay, right, yeah, all right. But again, because hey, Larry, one of those guys, college championship, NBA finals at least, and a championship. No, he won a championship with Detroit too. So,
So you worked with, you mentioned the characters. You worked with AI in Philly. And we know anybody who's a basketball fan, an NBA fan knows what kind of character AI was in Philadelphia. Then you got a chance to work with the big man himself, Shaquille, right? And then after him, you had King James, LeBron, and D Wade. So of the
Chris
four
Bosh
guys, that must have gave somebody in your position, Fitz. It must have been like herding cats when you were dealing with all these guys, right? And all their requests that they get and stuff.
I tell you what, Chuck, I've been very fortunate to have worked for some great coaches and been around some outstanding players, as you mentioned. It's different. You see a different side of things. I mean, when I think we talked about earlier, there's nothing quite like, I used to when we had Shaq, it couldn't get much crazier than that because he was such a big person. What you see on TV, he was bigger than that even. And, he'd be joking around with our guys and doing different things, always the prankster. You always had to keep one eye, on him because God knows what he was going to do. A lot of things you can't even say here that went on. But, when we got to the big three, that's when things really got crazy. I mean, we were literally, they called us the Heatles, like the Beatles, we were the Heatles. Everywhere you went, we'd pull in the.
Who was Ringo in that group? That's you had all big superstars.
Yeah, we did. I mean, Chris was probably took the back seat to all of them. God bless him. But he was a star in his own right. And I tell you what, one of the easiest superstars to ever deal with, Chris Bosh. So happy to see him get his due as a finalist for Hall of Fame, and hopefully he gets in, because I think a lot of times he didn't get the credit he deserved playing behind Dwayne and LeBron's shadows. But he was every bit as important, and our guys will tell you he was the most important part of our winning our 2 championships and getting to the finals 4 straight years. But we would pull in we'd pull into places at 2, 3 in the morning, because it's, if you were coming from Miami, if we played in Miami, there's no place close unless you're going to Orlando. Everything else is 2, 3, 4 hour flights. So we'd get in at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. There was always people outside our hotel. Didn't matter what time. I mean, we got into Philly one time. We got back. I think we left from Milwaukee, so we came from somewhere in the middle of the country, and we got to Philly, and there was a snowstorm there, and it's 2 or 3 in the morning. It couldn't have been more than, I don't know, about 9 degrees, and there's guys out there with kids at 2 or 3 in the morning. You're like, what are you doing here? Just trying to get autographs, try to get a picture. I mean, school nights, work nights. We're not talking Friday night, Saturday night. This is the middle of a week. And it's, again, it's in the teens, it's under that. And yet you always had people there, trying to get in. And it's funny, because a lot of these autograph guys would pay kids to try and get, they figure this guy's not going to sign for me. Not going to sign for a 30-year-old guy or a 40-year-old guy or a 50-year-old guy. But, how can they tell a kid they won't do it? So you got these guys who do sell collectibles, paying kids to try and get signatures from the players. And it was really quite an experience from a media standpoint. We had 3 beat writers from ESPN. We had a couple from each of our papers. We're a basketball team. We have 12 players, of which probably 8 of them played. We have 4 assistant coaches and a head coach. Only the head coach is allowed to talk. And yet we would be traveling 20 media members from our group. And then every time you played somewhere, you'd always get their lead, their beat writer, a columnist. Yeah, we were the team. Most people hated us at that time because they didn't like the way our team was put together, and they didn't like the celebration that our guys had when we signed them all, and everybody wanted to beat us.
Right.
So that first year was tough. We wound up losing the championship that first year, and that just fueled LeBron's fire to get better. And then we won the next 2 years. But I tell you what, over the years, just so many great memories. And Ray Allen, another Big East alum, was kind of responsible for helping put that second ring on my finger. If he doesn't hit that shot.
Mm-hmm. And that rebound kick out.
And that rebound, Chris Bosh got the rebound and kicks it out to him. And Ray hit that shot. It's funny because I don't know if you guys remember, but, we were down 3-2 in that series. And
that was over.
And when you're on the road, or even at home, when you get close for the third game, when it gets down to the end and the team that has the 3 is winning, they get the rope and they start roping off the court to try and keep people off the court. And our guys were just infuriated that rope came out with about a minute and a half to go at home. How dare they bring that rope out? And they talked about how that just gave us that little extra push we needed. I mean, fans were leaving the building. The rope was out, and then all of a sudden, we hit a 3, and then we get a stop. We get a foul. Kawhi Leonard hits only 1 out of 2, and it opens the door, and then LeBron misses a 3, and the rebound goes out to out to Ray Allen, and he knows where he is on the floor. Yeah. And those of us that were in the Big East, we knew that that was always Ray Allen.
He missed it by if it was that much, that toe on the line, it was a different story.
Even back to his Connecticut days, he was a deadly shooter.
Yeah, but just his position, knowing, because I remember watching that game, going, "Oh my God, Pop's going to win this one. They're gonna. It's a big upset. Yada yada yada." And I was like, "Oh!" And then the substitution and the rebound, and everybody second guesses. But oh my God, that was that game is etched in my memory.
He would do a drill, Sonny, where he would lay on the floor in the corner, get it, jump up, run back, get it, shoot it. And it paid off in that particular instance. He talked about how doing that drill all the time for years paid off in that certain situation, help us win a championship. And people don't remember that it was only game 6 too. We had to win game 7.
Right.
But we looked dead in the water, and probably certainly from our standpoint, the greatest shot in the history of the NBA Finals. Certainly the biggest shot in our franchise history, and we've got three titles and a couple of runner-ups. So it was a Big East guy that helped do that for me. And again, Chuck talked about some other personalities. We've had I got a chance to work with AI, got a chance to work with Alonzo Mourning, some other Big East alums that are had pretty nice careers. I still work. Zoe works for us now. Zoe's been a vice president for us for years.
Okay, well, one last question, Stats. Of all the stuff you saw during your time in the Big East with us, what was, besides the 2 games you mentioned, what was your favorite? And besides the championship, let's take that out of the picture. We already know. What was your favorite moment?
Wow. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, those are the games that stuck with me. Just the camaraderie, just more than anything else. The White House was cool too. Getting the opportunity to do that, to be in a Rose Garden, and that was kind of neat. I remember we got back from Lexington. We stayed overnight, and we had that big party in our hotel, the Ramada Inn or wherever we were at the time. And we got back, and we were getting ready to disperse because I guess it was spring break. And then I remember, somebody coming to the coach's office, we can't go anywhere. We're going to the White House. And that was like, wow.
You and I were in the car ready to go home, and they knocked on the door.
We were all getting ready. We're getting out of there. We're getting away for a couple of days. And like, you can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. And it's like, yeah, that was really neat. The parade down, it was pretty cold that day, but the parade down, in Broad Street in Philly, there's nothing like your first championship. I know you should put it away, but I've been very fortunate to win 4. Just missed out on a couple others, with the Heat, one with the University of Miami baseball team, one with the Phillies. So I've been on the losing end of a couple of these things too. But your first one is always special. And like I said, to see somebody like Jake Nevin, who had been in the game all those years, finally win one. It's not easy. And like I said, I've got a lot of years in this business, and you just appreciate what that means. And that links your teams together forever.
Yeah.
Our Villanova team, our Heat championship teams. When you win a championship, you are linked together forever. And it's a special feeling. And, nothing does it for you like sports does.
Yep. Well, with that, Stats, we're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Rob, for being
with us.
Thank you, fellas.
Our special guest today has been Rob Wilson, who was a very integral part of our championship run and my 4 years at Villanova. As Jay Wright so eloquently says, nobody's job is better or worse than anybody else's. Everybody's got to do their job for a team to be successful. And this is a proof of that being true, is what you guys did every single day to make practices and everything move quick. So
that'll get you the free sneakers or those extra sneakers or whatever out of the closet.
Sneakers, yeah, of course. And thank you for that and everything you've done, and appreciate your time and coming out today with us.
All right, buddy.
Anyway. 1, 2, 3. Meal money.
Meal money. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Meal money. This has been the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Spera. And Big East Rewind, as always, is produced and directed by Daryl Gurney and Nick Chico Chorus. Reach us on YouTube. You can go on and type in Big East Rewind, and all of our shows will come up. We ask that you subscribe if you like the show. Also on podcasts or on Spotify, iTunes, and where you get your podcasts. And if you want to reach out to us and contact us in any way, you can email bigeastrewind@gmail.com. Thanks again. And for the Big East Rewind, it's been Chuck Everson and Sonny Spera. Have a great night.
Peace out.